Yes, people. Yes, people. Yes, people. Welcome back. 12th man is back. Good afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you're watching around the world. Big up to Saeed and all of you, like Saeed Raiders. Absolute legend, they say. Go check out the show. It was absolutely phenomenal, as it always is. Big up to you, my bro. Thank you so much for the redirect and all of you for being here. Do me a favor, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, and make sure that you are part of the community. Joining me today, I've got Roms, I've got Dan, I've got LB, and I will have Martin and Pete joining me very, very soon as well. I hope you're all well, boys. Listen, Roms, I know you don't have long, so before we go Arsenal City, might as well touch on Liverpool. I've got to be real, brother. I actually thought it was a really good result for you against AC Milan, and I was really impressed to see what you were going to be doing in terms of bouncing back against, obviously, a poor result at Nottingham Forest. And I kind of feel like you're probably going to blitz Bournemouth away because that Anfield needs a reaction, my bro. So how are you feeling at the moment, bro?
Literally just echoing what you said, it was the perfect reaction because the first 10-15 minutes, AC Milan were cutting through us, and I thought, oh, not again. Because I was saying all this week before the AC Milan game, if it was a persistent thing, or let's say that was a bad result, then you start to get a bit worried because I'm putting Nottingham Forest as a blip. I went to the game, it was depressing, but I'm putting that game as a blip. And it was the right response against AC Milan. After the first 15, we had a stranglehold. They couldn't play their game. I think we were beating them in all departments of the pitch, and it was the right reaction. And now we should beat Bournemouth. You know, no game is a certainty, but we should. I said the same thing about Forest, but like you said, there was a key word. You said reaction. We need a reaction there. I'm not used to losing at Anfield, and we've lost our last 3 of the last 6. I mean, Klopp went 3 years without losing there, so I'm not used to losing at home. So, and I think the majority of our fan base, so it's not easy to take, but we can't go 2 home games back-to-back losses. Arsenal and with yourself and City playing, we have to capitalize because even though, like, I don't think we'll win the league, the expectation still is to win the league. We still have to be thereabouts. We still have to put the pressure on you lot and City, and points will be dropped in your game. So there's no better way than winning before you lot playing and just see what happens, see how the weekend unravels. But yeah, we should win, man. We should win. I wouldn't make too many changes. Slot made a change against AC Milan. He dropped Robbo and put in Simicast. But that was, and Gakpo for Diaz. That was the only one. But I do feel like he'll revert back to the starting 11 that started the season, our first 2-3 games. So yeah, man, we should react then. We should react. I'm expecting 3 points and a comfortable win. But I just hope I didn't jinx that. But yeah, it should be back.
Fair play, man. I mean, look, before I come to the boys, Liverpool in Europe has always been good, man. You've always been a threat. And I always look at Liverpool and think, oh, that's the team I wouldn't want, right? But I think some of that over the last few years has been Jurgen Klopp. And I just wanted to get your opinion on what you think of this competition and if you can still be competitive in it.
Champions League?
Yeah.
Well, I've actually got you lot might raise your eyebrows. I was speaking to LB on Monday about it. I actually believe we got a good chance of winning it. I think if we avoid Madrid, I genuinely think we win it. And I know some people might say you're crazy, but
you're crazy, bro.
I always back my team in Europe because the difference with the league and the Champions League, I've always said this, you can't cheat the league. The league, you have to be consistent. The league doesn't lie. Champions League can lie. Like you saw Porto when they won it with Mourinho. They weren't the top 10 in Europe. I think Dan will agree with Chelsea. They weren't even the top 5 in Europe when they won it both years. We won it in 2005 and weren't even the top 10. So it's about luck and moments. And I back us in Europe. Real Madrid are the team I fear. Don't get twisted. Your Cities, your Arsenals, your Inter Milans, your Bayerns. Of course, they could give us trouble. But I just back my team in Europe. Premier League's a different story. But in Europe, I'll always go into games quite confident. And you saw it even against AC Milan. It's not a great AC Milan team. We've seen better AC Milan teams. But San Siro still isn't an easy ground to go to. I actually read a stat. We've never actually lost there. We've got 4 straight wins. So that was a nice stat to add upon. But I think we'll do well in Europe. For me personally, I think we'll get minimum semis, and then from then, who knows? But I always back us in Europe, man. Always.
Yeah, likewise. LB, you said no chance. You don't fancy Liverpool in Europe?
Nah, no way, bro. Like, I think they could get to maybe quarter-final, semi-final. That'd be a really good achievement. But to sit there and say they could win it in Slot's first year, nah, man, that'd be insane. That'd be insane. If they won it in his first year, that'd be insane. And that's why I'm saying they're not going to do it. I sound like a bit like Rory Jennings, isn't it? You know what I mean? When he said that about Haaland. You know what I mean? That's because that's what he said. He said to suggest that Haaland can get top goal scorer in his first year, he's not going to do it. But that's the reason I'm thinking you're not going to win the Champions League, bro.
I understand your logic, but then you see like managers like Di Matteo and Tuchel that have had half a campaign, not even the pre-season win it. So you have to admit it is a competition where you don't have to be the best. It's about luck. It's about moments. We've won ties just at Anfield. We've been battered away from home many times over the years, and just blitz team at Anfield alone. So I understand why you think we won't, because you do have to be good to a certain degree. But I just back us in Europe. I always have, whenever I start a Champions League campaign, I always have us top 3 or 4 favorites, and history does suggest that. To be fair.
Yeah, man. Listen, come to Arsenal, Man City. I mean, it's the big game this weekend, and I know LB doesn't have long either. I'm looking at it, thinking to myself, last night, it didn't really show that we're in front of goal. We're that good, and we're not creating much. Manchester City, I didn't actually watch the game, but so after speaking to Mo, they got in behind, and Man City weren't great against Inter Milan. So I don't know what we're thinking, boys. I'll come to Dan first, then we'll let LB and Roms go. What are you saying about this game, Dan?
I think it'll be a tough game for both teams. I think Arsenal have been really, really good defensively, but I think Man City have obviously been exceptional going forwards. I think Man City will probably have too much for Arsenal. I think obviously they've shown with their record in recent years at the Etihad, they've been incredibly tough for Arsenal to play against. And I probably think it will be a bit of a snooze fest, to be honest, for the neutral. I feel like it's going to be a lot of cancelling out, and I feel like there'll be a couple of specific moments that might be where this game sort of is decided on. But yeah, I think Manchester City will just have enough. I think Arsenal have struggled going forward at times in the last couple of games that they played.
Yeah, I agree, bro. I
Yeah,
agree. I agree with that. I think it's going to be a tough game for us to break you down, because you're going to park the bus in it. But I think in the end, I think we'll just have enough. Like I watched the game last night. I thought you guys were shocking. I can't lie, man. I thought it was really, really poor. Not entirely sure what the game plan was. You weren't pressing. You were sort of like stuck in between two sort of like game plans, really, and lack of quality really from Atalanta in the forward line. Otherwise, they probably would have beat you, in my view. You had 2 decent chances. Martinelli, he's not good enough for Arsenal. He needs to be sold, in my opinion. But, you know, some Arsenal fans don't want to have that conversation. I think I've gone for a 2-0, but to be honest with you, like maybe 1-0 is probably where I'm going to be at. I think City will just nick it, because I thought going forward yesterday, you was shocking. Really, really poor. I think you guys do clearly miss Odegaard. Rice isn't good enough at progressing the ball up the pitch from deep, so he can't really create. Partey sort of similar. So I think you're really, really missing Odegaard in that midfield, which is obvious because obviously he's a decent player. But yeah, I think we'll get the job done. Just.
Yeah. Look, I can see why you think that. Last night was poor, man. I can't lie. I was really struggling to understand what was going on going forward. It was actually our midfield that was letting us down. And then the attack, when they did get the ball, just did nothing with it at all. Martinelli was awful. Saka was about as bad. Havertz did a lot to win fouls, but didn't do much more. I thought that we struggled with Jesus, who was basically offside every single time he touched the ball.
Shocking.
It was poor, man. I thought Thomas Partey looked like an old granddad in there. It's starting to show.
What has happened to him, by the way? He just aged
man.
like 5 years in a heartbeat.
Yeah, in this season he looks 35 all of a sudden. It's not good. I've not seen him give away sloppiness like that for a long time, and I can understand why him and Jesus both got hooked. Jorginho come on and wasn't much better with his passing, if I'm honest, but was a little bit better than Paul. It wasn't hard, but he was better than Partey. I think the only positives yesterday and last night is defensively. Defensively, we look solid. That's the biggest positive so far. We've conceded 1 goal so far this season. And that was when
Ben White looked dodgy, though, man, because I want City to play Doku on that left-hand side and just tell Doku just to take on, obviously, Ben White, because he didn't look at the races, really. So he probably, I'm kind of mad because obviously, like, he's been pretty solid for you, but looking at sort of Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, he's the one now that needs to step up his game, and I hope we play Doku on that left-hand side.
Ben White has had 2 bad games now, really. Spurs and now Atalanta. It wouldn't even be against the fact that we played Timber right back and Calafiori at left back now. That's the thing. At least we've got options in the defence. We ain't got anything else anywhere else, man. Like Sterling coming on has been horrendous. And Jesus likewise. Sorry, Roms. Go on, bro.
LB hit the nail on the head with something, and I think Guardiola thinks the same. I'm going to call you LB Guardiola because normally Grealish starts the big games. But the fact Doku was rested and Grealish started this, I didn't think Grealish would start this midweek game. I thought Pep would save him for Arsenal. But the fact is the inverse, and Doku was rested and Grealish started. I think LB's spot on. I think Pep's kind of looking at it like Ben White hasn't had the greatest of starts to the season. Let's just have a nuisance. Let's just have a player that keeps running him, and then have Savio the other side. I know you're more defensively assured that side. I think to have Timber and Calafiori as your left back options, it's a headache most teams would want to have. But I think Savio and Doku either side, it could be like a long even. I agree with you two. I think this is going to be a low scoring game. I think Arsenal are going to be pragmatic. City are going to have to try and break them down. But I agree with LB. I think eventually they'll huff and they'll puff and they'll eventually blow the door down. And I think Haaland as well. I realise with Haaland, when a lot of people start speaking about him and that players start doing this, that, and the other, he's that type of player that wants to pay back with a goal. And a lot of Arsenal fans have been saying, we do well against him. I actually think he's going to score the sole goal of the game and City probably edge it 1-0. But one thing I will say yesterday is, if I was an Arsenal fan, the biggest worry for me is it shouldn't take Odegaard to come out your team for you just to not create chances. It shouldn't just take one player to come out. And that's the biggest alarm bells for me. It's like, I speak to most Arsenal fans, because we don't have Odegaard, we don't create. It shouldn't be solely on one player. You should have other sources of creativity in your team. And that, for me...
The thing is, though, Roms, I said this, and I said that we didn't do enough in the transfer window to replace...
Yeah, you did.
You know what I'm saying? So when we got rid of Smith Rowe and Vieira and not replace them, and we get rid of Eddie and not replace him, now it's showing. All of a sudden, you have an injury to Marino and Odegaard, and we're screwed. And Declan Rice can't play in the 8, in my opinion. I think he's a 6, but we're having to play him there. That means Jorginho and Partey. Odegaard gets moved out. We then move Sterling, who's supposed to be one of our wingers, inside. Trossard goes inside. Martinelli not good enough. And all the pieces of the puzzle start to collapse. And I said this would happen, man.
Dan,
do you know who I'd play inside, by the way? I'd give Timber a go in midfield. I think he's
played there before.
The ball.
Yeah,
like, I would think about that.
Yeah, but then who are you playing left back?
Do you know what else I'd say, Dan, where I've got to criticize Arteta as well? You don't really fix what's not broken. I think everyone agree. Havertz in the last 6 months has been one of your more constants in your starting 11. Why then put him in the midfield? Why? Like,
I don't get it, Roms.
Because no, you do get it, because if he plays, otherwise Jesus is basically being told that he's surplus to requirements. And if he's surplus to the requirements, then Arsenal fans will be saying, well, why don't you sell him in the summer and get a new striker? He doesn't rate... I don't think Arteta rates Jesus, but look, you don't know what to say in it because you know it's true. But if you play... Bro, it's true, Roms. If you play Havertz up front in a game like that and then force someone into midfield, everyone's going to be saying, well, hang on a minute. 50 million quid on Gabriel Jesus. What's going on here? The truth is, Gabriel Jesus has already... reached the ceiling point at Arsenal Football Club. Yeah. There's a reason City got rid of him, and we all told you why when you bought him off us, and because he had a good start, a lot of Arsenal fans started gassing him up. He's not good enough for Arsenal, and he needs to be moved on. This is the thing about Arsenal, is I feel that you've reached a point in your growth, with this team, where you need to have, as a fan base, nothing to do with me, as a fan base, you need to have a conversation about having some difficult views and difficult conversations on some of your players, because some of them, in my view, I've got to the point where they are not good enough now for Arsenal if you want to be winning titles, if you want to be winning Champions Leagues. The problem is every fan gets attached to players emotionally, and you don't want to have the conversation. Oh, no, just give them another year. Give them another year. The best managers, the best clubs, ruthless with it. You're not delivering. You need to leave. And I think you've got 2, 3, 4 players at your football club that you need to have hard conversations about moving them on. Because I just thought, by the way, that's a compliment to your football club. By the way, I'm not slagging you off there. Because that means that you've gone up a level, innit?
No, I agree. LB, just to add on to that point, it's like you said, LB, a lot of football fans get attached to players. There's a lot of sentiment involved, and this is what I have to keep saying to Arsenal fans. Some will say Martinelli, there's still a player in there. But if he had maybe 2 or 3 months bad form, you could call it form. It's been 18 months. When do you start to accept this isn't form? Like, he's just not Arsenal level. I agree. I have to agree with LB. I think there's 3 or 4 players now you have to move on. And I do feel it might not be uncomfortable anymore, LB, because I think the fan base is growing more frustration. Even the Gooners that were more positive, I think they're even now getting frustrated. So I feel like the conversations will get slightly easier. But of course, you'll get some fans that always have sentiment towards a certain player. But I think you're spot on, LB. There's about 3 or 4 players that Yeah, that do need to
I'm
go
on it.
now.
If I'm honest, man, I don't even know if it's that hard of a conversation. Not for me, anyway. Maybe for some fans. I would have quite happily got rid of Gabriel Jesus because he can't keep fit. I'd have quite happily got rid of the likes of Tommy Asu and Zinchenko because they can't keep fit. Martinelli's a massive talking point now. You know how much of a fan I am of him. But he's been bad for a while now. He's been bad for a while. And, you know, I've been guilty of making excuses as to what's been around him. I need to look at him now, man. His performances have not been good enough. And I think when you go through on goal twice and you fluff your lines, you go through in the Tottenham game, you fluff your lines, you start to realize, yeah, maybe you haven't progressed. I look at Martinelli at 17, I look at him at 23. I don't think he's got any better than when he was at 17. And I don't know if that's a management thing or a player thing or a bit of both, but I do believe that he should have been a lot better by now. Now, I know he got
think it's a
15 goals the
Xhaka thing.
season before last, but go on, Dan.
I think it's a Xhaka thing. I don't think he's looked good since Xhaka left your football club. I think Xhaka helped him out on that left-hand side. I think he did an unbelievable job. And I genuinely think Arsenal's left-hand side has been questionable since Xhaka left.
Yeah,
Like,
it has.
left back,
Yeah, that's true. That.
left-sided.
And you know, this is what I mean by excuses I was giving him. I said he's not got a left 8, he hasn't got a Xhaka replacement, he hasn't got a proper number 9, and he's got a different left back every week. That was my excuses for Martinelli from last week. Whereas with Saka, you've got Odegaard, White, and Saliba every single game. So Saka knows who's playing around him every single game, and they're top quality. Let's be real. I know we've mentioned Ben White, but he's top quality, as is Saliba and Odegaard, right? With Martinelli, he's had Havertz, Rice, Smith Rowe, Fabio Vieira, Jesus, and then at left back, he's had Timber, Tomiyasu, Zinchenko, Kivior, and now Calafiori. So he's had no real sustainability around him. So they're the excuses that I have given him. Having said that, Trossard seems to be doing all right because he scores. Now, I don't think his performances have been great, if I'm honest, Trossard, but I think he's been scoring and delivering goals. So, yeah, there's some problems. However, what we can't do is sit there and act like we did on Said's show just a minute that Arsenal can't win a game for Toffee. They're 5 losses in a row and City are going to walk all over them. Because I think that's what I've been hearing from some of the side. We're still a good side. We've conceded 1 goal in 5-6 games now.
That's what Said said.
No, Said didn't say that, but we were actually, as a panel, we were a bit like doom and gloom about how God, Arsenal were poor, like, and it wasn't really like we're not poor. We're a good side, right? So I think defensively, the reason I think Arteta has done that, like, let's be real, if we don't lose to Man City, we've somehow come unscathed from that horrendous fixture list, which was Villa away, Spurs away, Atlanta away, City away. That ain't good, man.
It'd be good, bro. Considering that you could have been 8 points behind us after this game, you know what I mean? That's a great sort of position to be.
If we draw or beat you, it'll be unbelievable. It will. And I mean, look, I don't know what your thoughts are, both LB and Martin. I'll come to you on your team because I'm interested about what you do because this City side have looked good and it ain't really had Rodri yet, ain't really had Foden yet. Ake, Stones and Walker are just being reintroduced. I don't know what your 11's going to be. I'll ask you first, LB, and then go to Martin. What are you saying, bro?
How am I feeling about the game? Yeah. For me, I think we'll do it. I think we will nick it. Obviously, like I said before, innit? I think you guys are going to sit back. You're going to play for the draw, in my view. And I think City will obviously try and take the game too. We'll try and break you down. Your defense will be pretty solid. But I just feel that like this time we're better. Last year we were there for the taking at the Etihad. We weren't even in a good position. Whereas now I feel like we're in a good place. You know what I mean? So I think that we will create a couple of chances. We didn't really create too many chances against you last time. I do think we'll create a few. It's about whether or not we're clinical. I mean, we created 4 big chances against Inter Milan. Huge chances we should have scored. Didn't score any of them. If that happens against Arsenal, then obviously we're not going to score. Going down the other end, I don't know, man. I just feel like the way that you attacked against Atalanta was so bad. Like, I'd be surprised if you got too many chances if you set up in that defensive way, which I think you will. So, like I say, I think City will edge it. I don't know. I've gone for 2-0, but it's 1-0 or 2-0 for me. But I just think that experience again will out, and I think we'll get the job done. But if you get, I think you're going to play for a draw in it. You know, what I mean, you're not going to come to the Etihad and try and win the game. In my
You're definitely going to score against us, yeah.
I think we'll score. Yeah, I think we'll score this time.
Okay.
I think so.
Do you see any way you lose, LB? Any way?
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah, you could do. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like set piece, although we are pretty good at defending set pieces. Every time I watch Arsenal, they get a corner. I think they're going to score. Counter attack, not so much. Like again, I wasn't that impressed with Arsenal on the counter attack yesterday. I thought they were very, very poor, very average. So I think there's obviously a chance. I'm not going to sit here and say there's no chance Arsenal win the game, but I'm pretty confident we'll get the job done. Worst case scenario, draw.
What's your 11 going to be, Martin? Do you reckon?
My 11's a little bit different to other people's. For me, it's Pep in it. I don't know what Pep will do. He could go the normal back four, Rico, Diaz, Akanji, Gabadio. It's the middle of midfield because at the moment we don't know if KDB's fit. Pep said he doesn't know. He's not 100% out. Personally, I'd go with Rodri, Foden, Bernardo. And I'd play Doku and Grealish together. I think Savio needs to sit this one out. Listen, Savio's a very, very good player, and he's had a great start. But for me, I just think because Pep will, I don't see us going complete and utter all out, go gung ho. Pep is very adamant on not giving up some control. He won't do it. But again, it depends what Arsenal do. Because, people are saying, Arsenal, can Arsenal win? 100% Arsenal are a damn good team. They're not where they are for no reason. They haven't kept all the clean sheets because they're a bad team. It's whether Arteta's brave in these other moments. And I'm not sure he is, because if he sits back and does like LB says, score off a set piece, well, that could be your best opportunities. It's whether Arteta takes the leash off, because Pep will.
He's not going to take the leash off.
But see, I've had this debate 1,000 times. For me, Arsenal have to win at some point the Etihad, and I have this debate with all sorts of fans. To me, Arsenal have to come and win at the Etihad at some point to try and win the title.
No, I agree with you, but he's not gonna let the team off the leash, man, because he'll look at it and say, if I open the game up, I've got more chance of losing the game by doing that. He's got more chance of winning the game, but he's got more chance of losing the game, by opening the game up. And if he loses the game, they're 5 points behind us. If he comes there, shithouses it, gets the 0-0, he's a point behind. Or 2 points behind, or whatever it is. Like, it's not the 2 points behind. That's 2 points.
No, it's not. No, yeah.
You know what? I got a question for both Martin and LB. I actually agree with your midfield three, Martin. That's the midfield three I would start. But I think Kovacic probably starts this game. And I think the fact he got rested midweek is probably a big indicator, because Pep might want a bit of industry in that midfield. So I can see Kovacic starting.
I thought Gundogan might. No,
I'd start Gundogan. I'd start Gundogan ahead of Kovacic, right? Because if you're starting Foden in the attacking midfield role, right? Yeah, that's it. Kovacic ain't offering you nothing in attack. Yeah, like Dan knows this. Like, the guy's a great player, but he doesn't score. He doesn't create chances. He's a possession-based player, and he's a ball carrier. Very, very good, but that's it. He very rarely scores, right? So if you want someone else to be able to chip in and be able to join that attack and be able to join that creating chances, scoring, Gundogan's the one. So I'd go Gundogan. My midfield is different. My team's different to mine. I'd go Rodri, Gundogan, Foden, Doku, Haaland, Savio.
And who's the back line?
You just want to unleash hell.
You've got so many players in defence. I don't even know what your back line's going to be.
It'll be Rico Lewis, Akanji, Diaz, Gabadio. The thing is, though, Roms, we might as well, bro. Because if we lose the game,
I agree with you.
We're 1 point behind, bro. We're 1 point behind if we lose the game. So who cares if we're 1 point behind? Like, that's nothing, innit? You know what I mean? I'd rather go for it and try and get 5 points ahead of them. And in the worst case scenario, we get caught on the break. We're 1 point behind them.
And LB,
I just think it's well.
That isn't the way Pep thinks, though. I agree with what LB's saying. That isn't the way Pep will think, though. Pep's not going in this going, well, let's have a go if we lose one. We're only a point or two. He won't look at it like that, Pep.
Do you know what it
Pep,
is as
Pep
well?
will try not to lose.
Do you know what it is? I feel like because you're at home as well, I actually think both of you are at, but because you're at home, there's that element of you have to go for it. If this was at the Emirates now, you might be a bit more conservative. But the fact you're at the Etihad, last game of the weekend, I can see Pep. Pep's one of the best at managing games in moments. I think if Arsenal have a spell, then he might be a bit more conservative. But I think if you're dominating possession, as I think we all agree you will, I can see him maybe going for it. I understand what you're saying, Martin, but I can see him going for it. Especially
I've got a
they don't
dip, by
have
the way,
much-
boys. I'm on
Oh,
another
Yeah,
call.
LB, love for coming
Yeah.
on, man.
Yeah,
Love
See you in a
for
bit,
coming
man.
on.
See you in a bit, man. Big up, boys.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
About
Look, I've got to be honest. I kind of agree with a lot of what LB's saying about how Arsenal were going to set up. Big up to Pete, by the way. I hope you're well, bro. Cheers for jumping on, man. I want to come to you though, Martin, because I want to know how you're feeling going into this one with the Arsenal of the last couple of games. Obviously, defensively, we've been immense, but when it comes to the attacking play, it hasn't been fantastic. But Arsenal defended like crazy against you guys last time. You couldn't break us down. Haaland didn't get a sniff home or away against Gabriel or Saliba. Does that give you a little bit of kind of like worry going into this game? Or do you think like LB, you can get the job done and you can beat us?
the thing is, Dan, City can beat anyone on the day. It depends how we turn up. City can beat anybody on the day. But keep saying it, Arsenal, has it given me hope? No, because I expected Arsenal to do this a little bit. You look, and I'm only going off as an outsider looking at it, the way you started the season is a little bit more pragmatic than where you were playing last season, if you know what I mean. Because I made a point, when I look at the first 2 or 3 games of City, when we played Chelsea, West Ham, Ipswich, we were a bit more gung-ho, we were a bit more quicker in our tempo. We were putting Haaland on the last man and playing balls through a lot quicker. And I made a comment, I said, Arteta and Pep seem to have swapped their tactics a little bit over. And it was weird because Arsenal, for me, played the best football last season. They were electric. But this season, from Villa, they just don't know. They just went into being a little bit more pragmatic, a little bit more patient, passing the ball around a bit more. So,
do you think that's because who we've had, though, Martin? Do you think that's because of the games we've had, the fixtures we've had? Sorry, Roms, I know you got
potentially, yeah. No potential. Take care, Roms. Yeah, potentially it could be. I don't know. You might go all out. You might go. I think it's also because you don't have the outlay up front, Fuller.
Yeah.
I keep coming back to it. Me and you, Dan, have had this conversation 1,000 times. You haven't got a hitman up top. You haven't got a point of go. So you probably will do that extra pass. And I think City will do it when we haven't got Haaland. When we've got that false 9, we will go back to playing the extra pass. Because you're asking then a midfielder to try and do a movement of a 9. And it doesn't come as naturally. They don't sort of play on the last man as much. Because naturally they start dropping. Seen it with Foden 1,000 times. You try and put Foden in advance, seen it with Bernardo, and they naturally start drifting backwards. Because it's what they know in the brain. They're sat there going, I'm not used to playing on the last defender here like this. And they start, and when they're not getting the ball as much, because strikers don't get the ball as much as a midfielder does, you don't feel like you're in the game. So I suppose it comes down to me. I don't think Arsenal will do what you would need to do to beat us at the moment. And I think if Arsenal, I'm the total opposite, mate. I think if Arsenal have a go, you've got a better chance of beating us. And I've said this to so many people. City, if you look at the teams we beat, as Brentford for the first 20 minutes when we should have been 2-3 down, they were brave and they had a go. Because we're not used to it. We're used to teams coming in and just sitting and letting us have the ball. We're not used to teams coming at us with pace and quickness, aka why we were so stifled for 20 minutes against Brentford, because we weren't expecting it. It was like foreign to us. Where's this come from? No team comes to the Etihad and has a shot in the first 30 seconds. They don't do it. They normally pass back around the back line for 10 minutes. So that's what it is.
Martin?
It's a bit like the United, like Old Trafford was in the 90s. Remember the teams you'd scored Old Trafford in the 90s and they were beating the tunnel? And it was one of them. As long as we don't lose one, losing 1-0 became a good result at Old Trafford in the 90s. As long as you don't get pounded, you were good. And I think there's a little bit of fear factor with the Etihad. But for me, I'm telling you now, if Arsenal had a go, I think they get more joy than sitting back.
I mean, look, we have to do a bit of both, in my opinion. But I'll bring you in on this one, Pete. What do you think is going to happen this game, bruv?
Well, yeah, I think Arsenal are going to have to come out. They're going to have to. They're already behind on points. If they want to go to the well again and be there, sort of April, May. I listened to what LB said the other night in that, and I agree in that Arsenal are probably going to have to beat Man City either home or away, or maybe even both, if they're going to stand a chance of winning the title. And they're already behind on points as it is. Arsenal can't sit back and just expect to take a point. For the reason being is that it's not the same Man City. Man City are at their absolute potent best at the moment, and they will find a way to punish Arsenal, in my opinion, if you go and sit in and hope for the draw. I don't think Arsenal can do that this time. It's not that stage of the season, but what you don't want is Man City turning you over and you being a gap starts to emerge. You can't afford that. You can't afford that in this season, because then you're already chasing at such an early stage, and all it takes is, because you're chasing, there's a slip up elsewhere, and all of a sudden it's chaos again, and everyone's kicking off and everyone's going, the season's over, this, that, and the other. You don't want that. Arteta don't want that. He doesn't need that for the pressure in his players. You need to go out. If you went out and you went toe to toe with Man City, and it was a 3-2 or a 3-3 or whatever it was, even if you didn't win the game, but you got a draw, Arsenal's tails are up. The confidence is back because they've gone toe to toe with the best in the league, and they've matched them. Even if you were to lose 3-2 slightly, I think there'd be confidence there taking you into the other games. But at the moment, there doesn't seem to be. I'm not going to lie, I don't know what we said before, but I watched you in the Champions League last night. It wasn't great, not in my opinion. And I don't know if this has been a question. And I wanted to ask you this for a while, because we had the season Newcastle finished fourth when we were on the race for Europe. We had this conversation, and obviously Lawless was banging in about Martinelli being this sort of player. Yeah. And I tell you what, last season he kind of got a bye because he still did well. What's going on, man? At what point do you ask, at what point do you ask the question about him to go?
Now,
it's not right now. Exactly.
Now you asked the question. Now, I mean, we just had a chat earlier about why he's dropping off. A lot of excuses have come his way about the left-hand side of Arsenal. It's not sustainable. We've got different players every week that play there. It's not really sorted yet, our left-hand side. But sometimes you've got to look at your individual performance. You know, it's not the left-hand side's fault that Martinelli can't hit a barn door. It's not the left-hand side's fault that Martinelli in front of goal doesn't look as clinical. And it's not the left-hand side's fault that when he gets into a position, there's a rush of blood to the head and he just smashes it over. I mean, I was really disappointed in him in the finish against Spurs, but I was even more disappointed last night. It's been bad. A lot of people would say drop him, but, you know, we got Sterling and he's looked, honestly, the last two cameos of him have been absolutely embarrassing. If I'm honest,
he had his best two games of the season.
I warned you. Listen, me and Dan warned you about this, and you were all, no, great, here we go, we're getting him back.
I didn't want this guy, man.
Hey, best thing I heard yesterday, I was listening to a show. It might have been someone went, "Oh, Sterling's clutch." What? He hasn't been clutch in 3-4 years. Where are you going? Well, I don't know whether he's talking about a car clutch. I don't know, but
maybe a car. Yeah, driving a car because
it was. That wasn't the analogy I'd be using on Sterling, calling him clutch. But never mind. No, do you know what it is? Like Inter Milan. You go back to the Inter Milan game on Wednesday night. Everyone said Inter Milan parked the bus. Watch the first 20 minutes of that game. Inter Milan did not park the bus like everyone's thinking they did. Thuram had 2 chances in the first 10 minutes. This is what people... The issue with City is our midfield. You look, the last 2 games, when we played Brentford and we played Inter Milan, he's changed the midfield at half-time. Never done that before. Never done that. Because he's even got asked about it. Why are you changing your midfield? You don't normally do this.
But now you got Rodri back.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, LB said about Rodri Gundogan. I think it's too slow. We're looking at Gundogan. Gundogan is not coming in to do this role that he did 2 years ago. That's not the Gundogan role anymore for me. Gundogan's coming in to close games out and to start the occasional one. This is not the Gundogan of 2 years ago. He's the guy coming off the bench to close. Kovacic is a shout. But that's why I said, Bernardo, we are going to still need that little bit of pace in that midfield. And I wouldn't even surprise me, it'd be completely changed it. You remember when we beat you 4-1 and he went to that box midfield and inverted? But don't be surprised if that rolls out on Sunday.
This is the
And he
thing.
might
I just
just
don't know
drop
what
to
Pep's
for
going to
that.
do. I just don't know what Pep's going to do. I really don't. And you've got the personnel there, whereas you know what Arsenal's 11 is going to be, right? It's going to be the 11 that played against Spurs, other than Rice is going to come in for Partey, I believe, or Jorginho. One of them, depends who he thinks is better. Partey was abysmal last night, by the way, so I hope it's Jorginho. A lot of people saying play Sterling on the left instead of Martinelli. Not for me. I've not looked at Sterling and thought, wow, yet. But Martinelli, there's question marks. It's only because Trossard's playing the Ødegaard role. Otherwise, Trossard would start on the left and Ødegaard would be back. But now that he's out, Marino's out, we've got to try and sort this midfield out. And this is why I think at the moment that the attack is struggling at Arsenal, because our midfield at the moment is makeshift. We have to play Jorginho and Partey, who, let's be real, probably deserve to play about 15 games each the whole season. And have already had to play about 4 or 5 or 6 because it's just injury at Arsenal in midfield. So, look, we didn't do enough in the summer transfer window. I said this would happen. I said Ødegaard and Rice cannot be unavailable. And the two players that, first of all, are unavailable is Rice on a red card and Ødegaard, who looks to be out till around about November. So we're going to struggle. We're going to massively struggle. Look, I don't know why people believe we're going to come out and give it a go. We are not going to do that. Mikel Arteta is not going to do that. We're going to do that against Bournemouth at home. We're going to do that against Leicester at home. We're going to do that against Southampton at home and Bolton at home in the Cup as well. We've got 4 home games in a row, it looks like, after, because we've been away for the last, what feels like 6 weeks. But if we can come out of this stint playing the way that we are, I'll be cool with it. I ain't playing like this the whole season because you ain't going to win the league like this because it's nullifying.
Okay, Dan. Sorry, Dan, question. Why did City score early? I know that some Arsenal fans will now come at me and say, wow, that's never going to happen. We've not conceded, blah, blah, blah.
Well, it could happen.
Say City scored early.
Then
what happens with game plan then?
I honestly fear for us. Because I don't know how we come out at you and then win the game. I think that is going to take an absolute miracle. So that's why we need to score first. The first goal was massive in this game. You know, last season there wasn't the goal. It was 0-0 and City fans were crying about it. Oh, you should have come and attacked us. No, you just wanted to do that so you can beat us. That's how you win the game. You got to break us down if you want to beat us. That's how Arteta is going to play this. And I think that he knows that it's so early in the season that he can take a draw. Now, I actually believe that we should be going for the win. That's what I believe. That's what Dan Potts believes. What Mikel Arteta believes is just don't lose and we go into the next nice run of fixtures. That's what he thinks. Now, it's easy to say just don't lose, but we've been able to keep Haaland quiet for home and away of last season with Gabriel and Saliba. And I'm going into games now confident that we can keep clean sheets and that we've got an understanding of how to defend. My problem is, Martin, like you say, they get an early goal, game plan out the window, completely out the window. Because it ain't going to be, let's just make it 1-0. We're going to have to get to 1-1 at the bare minimum. And that's going to be hard, man.
But that goes the other way, Potts, because you've already seen Man City concede early in a couple of Premier League games this season.
Oh, and Pete, if we're 1-0 up, unbelievable.
And this is why I'm saying to you, you've got to come out. You've got to come out, even if it's for the first 10, 15 minutes. Come out and exert yourself on the opposition. Pressure yourself up the pitch. Take the emphasis off your defenders because, as you've just said, if you can get an early goal in that situation, you trust your back five. You trust your back five that they could probably withstand a lot of pressure and maybe nick something. But if you go deeper into the game and you get to 60, 70, even 80 minutes and you can smell a point, players do this for every team. They naturally start to drop back onto their defensive line. And you can't do that with Haaland. You can't do that because they're going to bring Grealish or Doku or whoever off the bench to come on and continue to push. And all it takes for them is to get a late goal and then you're not getting back in the game. Give yourself an opportunity, and I'm saying it to you directly, but if from an Arsenal perspective, I'm saying give yourself an opportunity to be in the game late on, either winning or drawing at some point. And you need to go out and you need to push yourself. See what Ipswich did. Went out, bang, early goal. And they didn't hold it for very long. But like I said, you trust that your back five is one of the best.
If we go 1-0 up, if we go 1-0 up, I'd actually be disappointed if we didn't win the game. That's how good we are at the moment defensively. Now, I'm not being disrespectful to Man City there because they can score against anyone. But I think if we've got this game plan of trying to go there and not concede goals, but we're 1-0 up, I mean, at 0-0, people are saying we might be able to win 1-0. If we're 1-0 up, We have got to win that game of football. We just have to. Like it's just we cannot lose this.
That's
game.
what I mean, Dad. It's an energy boost. You win this game, it's an early marker. You're the first team to beat us at home in 2 years. That's a statement in itself.
Massive.
It's your title rival. Massive statement again. And it just, because at some point for you to win the title, you have to attack. If you look at, I agree, you've had injuries. I know, I'm not saying it, but Tottenham, Atalanta, City. I mean, how long's Odegaard out for?
A long time, mate. Looking like October, November.
Are you just going to go the next 2 months and just defend in and not move? You're
Well,
not going to win a
this is what I
title
was asking
doing that.
today. No, you're not. And I said this earlier on the stream. I said, look, I am more than happy to play this way if it gets us across the line against Spurs, Atalanta, and City away. I ain't doing this at Bournemouth at home and Leicester at home. We have to go free-flowing and attacking again. And that's what I believe will happen. If that doesn't happen, massive question marks have to be put on the manager and what we were doing in the summer transfer market, not replacing Odegaard. Because if we're like this attacking, free-flying football, Odegaard gets injured, right, everyone back, defend. We're going to have to try and win 1-0 now. That's not good enough in the summer window. We needed to go out there and get an Eze. We needed to go out there and get an Isak or a Gyökeres or a Tony. We needed to, and we didn't. So I don't think we did enough in the summer transfer window, and I think it's showing already, bro. And everyone was coming for me on negative. Don't give it a 5 out of 10 window. We've got Marino. Well, he's now injured. We got Calafiori. Well, he doesn't play. And we got Sterling. Wow, brilliant. So the Sterling's going to get us across the line, is he, for a title? Come on, man. It's not good enough. You can see it's not good enough. Odegaard's now injured, and look what we're doing. We're trying to. We don't even know who's playing there. Trossard, you have a go. Sterling, you have a go. Havertz, you drop deep again. Doesn't work. We'll have to bring Ethan Nwaneri on now against Spurs, who's 17 years old. What is going on here? And I said this would happen, but of course I'm negative. So everyone just shut up and get on with it. Like, look, at the moment, we're talking doom and gloom. It's not doom and gloom. We've conceded 1 goal. We haven't lost a game, right? So it isn't that bad. Defensively, we're good. But we ain't been able. Here we go. Look, negative Dan as usual. That's what I get all the time. Negative. I'm just stating what is happening at the moment.
It's just realistic and honest, isn't it? It's exactly what's out there.
This is what's happening at the moment. Everyone's saying it.
It just baffles me that if Arteta felt like if Odegaard got injured, he has to change his whole system. That not have a replacement that allows you to not have to change your system is just crazy. I would have been on the phone to Edu like non-stop. If you let Vieira go and if you let Smith Rowe go, I have to change my system. That's to let us compete with Man City for the last 2 seasons. If he gets injured, bring me in a backup. If you don't bring me anything else, bring me in a backup. If Edu turned around to him and said, "Oh, Nwaneri is your answer," then we need to see more of Nwaneri instead of changing the system, in my opinion. But maybe he felt like this fixture list is too difficult to navigate for a young guy to come in. But sometimes they're the games to give him a baptism of fire in and see what happens.
I've seen it plenty of times. Big players come in, players become big players because they're given an opportunity to shine. Why not? If you trust him to be part of your squad, you trust him to play when needed. It's as simple as that. Like if you're going to play part of your 25, you play him. If you haven't got an alternative, you play that guy and you give them the experience. If after 2 or 3 games you're seeing that they're struggling and they're not playing as well and it's actually having a detrimental effect to the player, then you pull the player out. But give them the opportunity. You see many a player been able to step onto the stage and prove themselves when they've been sometimes even thrust into the position because of injury and played their best football. Well, why not?
Can I just bring up as well, because obviously Mr. I'm Negative has said, come on, mate. What replacements are necessary at that level? We're going to be happy to sit on the bench behind Odegaard waiting for an injury. Martin, does Foden sit on the bench sometimes? Does Bernardo sit on the bench sometimes? Does Savio sit on the bench sometimes? Does Grealish sit on the bench sometimes? Does Doku sit on the bench sometimes? What are we doing here?
Look at Chelsea. Look at Chelsea and how stacked their squad is with players that are of a level that could come in and do a job for Arsenal right now. In these roles where we're talking about Martinelli not being good enough. Like, you could have got João Felix. He would do a job in that role. Do you know what I mean? He's not perfect, but he'd do a job. These players are happy to come in and be rotation options if they're going to be fighting for the Premier League title. Do you know what I mean? We're not talking about Arsenal of 3, 4, 5 years ago when they weren't quite near there. But now we're talking about
Yes.
Arsenal, who are
Yeah.
maybe that one player who has his moment for 10 games away from potentially winning themselves a league title or a Champions League or something like that.
Well,
You know
someone
what
who
it
is
is?
someone who is Mr.
Come on.
Positive is Igal. Martin, you're a fan. You like Igal. We're going to get a smash and grab 1-0 win on Sunday, according to Igal. Big up, Igal. I hope you're right, my bro. I hope you're right.
No, do you know what it is? The thing is, I don't think Arsenal's signings were bad. The trouble is, it's like I have this debate with so many football fans. Is if you're going to sell, that's fine, but Arsenal sold all their backups.
Yeah.
So you brought in, you sold all your backups, which is fair enough. You're going to say they're not playing. That's fine, but you had a couple of injuries now. Well, you had two injuries, Moreno and Odegaard, and your bench looks like ours was at the start of last season. Go back to the City bench. People say we played Newcastle at home and beat them 1-0. We had a bench of kids because we were all out injured.
Yeah.
And that's what you end up with. But the difference is we had no KDB last season for 6 months. But we had Foden to rock in. And I'm not saying it's easy where you can, but you say to them, you have to pay them a little bit more wage, and you have to say to them, come in and you're going to fight for the title. And you do it that way. Not say, we're not talking, if you want a backup to Odegaard, you're not going to get a backup to Odegaard. Same way you're not going to get a backup to Rodri. You have to go a level down. But they're going to improve themselves, surely, because they're going to Arsenal, who are challenging for the title.
What, Martin? If you don't do what you suggested, which is pay the players to come sit on the bench, you use the player that you have said is good enough and is a replacement for Smith Rowe and Vieira. In that case, it's Ethan Nwaneri, because that's what Man City did. I'm not saying Nwaneri's as good as Foden, he's not, but that's what you've got to do. You've got to say, right, Nwaneri comes in, and people go, he's not ready. Manager thinks he is. He hasn't bought anyone to replace Smith Rowe or Vieira. So off you go, son. You're 17. Good luck. And you know what? I'll give him his credit. He looks a baller. He looks fearless. He looks confident on the ball. But look, that's a big risk having to play him for going for a title. Big time, man.
Dan, Cancelo went out of Serre. You all know the circumstance. We had nobody. He brings in a 17-year-old who has now just made his debut for England 2 years later.
It was quality, by the way.
That's what you can do. You've got to take a gamble at some point, otherwise. I'm not saying you have to get a team of academy players, because no team's going to get that. But if you can get 2 or 3 coming in, still a success. Foden, 17, when he made his debut, scored against Spurs at home, won the game. Rico Lewis has come in, for 2 years, has slowly built up and built up. He's now kicked Kyle Walker out of his own spot and said, see you later, that's mine now.
Class.
So you got to gamble it. Some point.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think that's what we might have to do in certain games. And look, I've got faith in Ethan. I've seen him enough now to know that he's good enough to be a part of this squad. But my problem is, at the moment, I do think we're short, man, and we can't get any more injuries, that's for sure. Look, let's get some score predictions before we do move, because I've got another show in about 20 minutes. So I've got to move on forward. What are we saying for this one, Pete? What are you going for?
I think it's going to be a close game. A lot of the big games are now. It's going to be a tight game, but I do think Arsenal will score in this game. But I just got a feeling that Man City are going to win. So I'm going to say it's going to be 2-1 to Man City.
Okay, Dan.
Yeah, I actually think it could be. I think it could be 2-0 City.
Okay, interesting. Martin, what are you saying, bruv?
2-1. I do think we'll concede. I think it's going to be a very, very tight game. It's going to be 1-0 or 2-1. It's going to be 1 goal either side. It's going to be tight as hell.
Well, I said 1-1, but I also said 1-1 last night, and it was 0-0. So it'll probably be 0-0. My head says 0-0. My heart says 1-0 Arsenal. We nick it and we stink it and get the hell out of there. But yeah, I've got to be realistic.
Hey, they're wrong with that, mate. They're wrong with that.
Listen, I'll take it. I don't care how you win it.
if that happens, I tell you what, for you won't care one iota for 1
Not at
second
all.
at all.
Yeah. Don't worry about it, Dan. We'll just go up to Newcastle next week and slap Pete's lot. So it'll be all right.
Hey, the difference is we're expecting that to happen anyway.
The thing is, we're all forgetting Newcastle are technically in a title race at the moment. This is, I think it's three-horse race.
We're not
I don't know.
getting-
You don't know. No, it could be.
we,
You don't know.
We've got to do the job first. So
Let's move there, because I actually do believe that Newcastle still are going for Champions League. I got shouted at, I got slated, it went viral, everyone was shouting, you can't put Newcastle fourth. 1 game a week, they're looking all right at the moment. I wouldn't say they're looking outstanding by any means, but you're getting the job done, Pete, in certain games. And I was actually really impressed with you at the weekend in terms of turning that result around. I know that they're not the best of teams, but Harvey Barnes, man, he stepped forward, bruv. You got Fulham next, I believe, at Craven Cottage.
Yeah.
That's a tough game, by the way. That is a tough place to go. What's your thoughts going into this one, bruv?
again, another tough game. I mean, look, we've got a pretty good record at Fulham in recent years, but they've never been easy to get those results. It's always been quite close by the odd goal, and I think it'll be exactly the same again. But there's an added incentive. Go top of the league on Saturday if you get the win. It's as simple as that. And I'm not going to lie, after our shocking summer window, I didn't expect to be in this position 4 games in, thinking a winner will take you top, albeit for 24 hours. But look, hell, I don't care what one bit, as long as we get that result. As I've just said to you, I don't care if on 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon we've absolutely shithouse our way to a 3 points. I'll take it. I'll take that all the way through the season.
It's the ex-Arsenal boys we got to watch. Smith Rowe, Nelson. They've been balling out, scoring goals.
Absolutely, and they're a good team. They've got some good players. They obviously need to bed in and get in. But Smith Rowe's been playing really well. Sanderberg's been doing a job for them at the moment. Traore is having a good start to the season. So we've got players who we need to worry about. But equally, so have we. Like there's a question mark on whether Isak's going to be fit. I personally think he will. But he came off at half time with a foot, and they thought it was an eye injury, but it was a foot injury. So we're not sure on that. But everyone else is fit and firing, ready to go. And we haven't played good football this season. And I'm not going to lie, like it was been a bit of a surprise. A lot of the fan base have been been quite negative about the fact, even though they've been winning, it's not been pretty. But sometimes it's not. Like sometimes it is just about getting the results, particularly early on in the season. And we are due a good performance. So hopefully it comes on Saturday. But for me, I don't care. As long as we're getting points on the board, we have players. And you've just touched on one, Harvey Barnes. People discarded him. Waste of money. This is Newcastle fans, by the way. Waste of money, 38 million, should have never signed him. People have forgotten what he did at Leicester. Back-to-back double figures. Not just goals, but assists as well. Before he came to Leicester. This last season was the only season in his career that he's had any form of significant injury. We just needed him to get fit. We just needed him to have a full preseason. And now we're seeing what he can do. And he's not even starting. That's the thing. He's having great moments. He's bagging goals. He's looking potent. Playing on the right side, on the left. Honestly, we've got players that can win those matches. And I've not been able to say that in years gone by, but I can say that now. We've got players that come in matches, and that's.
And you know what? For me, it's about keeping your team fit, because last season you were depleted with injuries, and if you kept your bunch fit, I honestly do believe 1 game a week you can get or compete with Champions League football. I understand Villa, I understand Liverpool, I get it, but I still don't think anybody other than maybe Chelsea at the moment. I look at Newcastle. I think Tottenham look awful. Man United, please, let's not get carried away with a 7-0 against Barnsley. Come on, they ain't going to be, in my opinion. I think they look nowhere near as good as they should do. So I fancy Newcastle to be up there, Pete. I do, man.
There's one big change coming in the summer, and it's James Bunce, who's a performance analyst and a good friend of Paul Mitchell. Paul Mitchell brought him in as part of his move as sporting director, and he was responsible for turning around Monaco's injury crisis, which was worse than ours was last season when he first came in at Monaco, and he completely revamped their fitness schedule, and they ended up being top level off the back of that. And you can already see he's come in And for example, he's monitoring the injuries and how long he's giving them more time to get up to speed. The training intensity's gone down, whereas Eddie Howe was working them really hard. Intensity the same as match days was causing possibly some of the injuries, bringing it down. And the start of play on match days as well, we were all action. You'll know from seasons gone by, all action press for 90 minutes, constant. Not happening now. It's a measured approach, and actually it's allowed us to stay in games and be intense for longer. We don't do it for 90 minutes, but we have pockets in games where we go at teams for 10, 15-minute spells, and it's keeping players fit. And if we can do that, as you just said, our strongest 11, and you could argue 3, 4, 5 players on the bench with Botman to come back very soon. We've got enough. We've got enough of quality in there to push, but there's fine margins there. So I'm not getting too excited just yet. But good start to the season.
Yeah, I agree, man. Dan, what are you saying, my bro? You got West Ham. It's going to be mad. We might as well finish off last 5 minutes with yourself. Lopetegui, not the best, if I'm honest. I'm not a fan of what I'm seeing from West Ham under Lopetegui, but I think Chelsea will win this one. What are you saying, bro?
Yeah, look, I'm not really confident going into this because I just feel like a London derby form sort of goes out the window. Anything can happen, and we've struggled against West Ham in this fixture. We did last year. And we lost 3-1, got a man sent off. We weren't at the races for that one. But then actually in the return leg, we did all right against them. So different West Ham, completely different outlook. I thought they were okay against City. But other than that, I don't think they've looked great this season. I just think hopefully Chelsea have enough with squad depth that they showed against Bournemouth to sort of navigate these trickier fixtures this season. But look, I'm not sure how well understood it is for Maresca and this young Chelsea team what London derbies mean as of yet. And that's something I think they need educating on. And only time will tell where they stand with those. So, yeah, it'll be a tricky one. I don't think it will be easy, but I'm with you. Lopetegui really is under pressure, I think, because they've spent a lot of money, West Ham, and the football is just not at the level it should be with the type of money that's been spent there. And as much as like they all get on the back of David Moyes, the decline off of him leaving, it's not looking great, is it? I'm sure they start thinking actually the grass isn't always green.
Spot on. So to me, I thought West Ham played better last season when we played them than they did this. It was easier to play them, and I've never rated Lopetegui, whatever he's called. I've never rated him, and I don't understand. I think West Ham. There was a lot of hope on West Ham because of the money spent. But they haven't got the manager, so they haven't got it. To me, he's not going to do anything. So, personally, I think both Newcastle and Chelsea will win over the weekend.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I absolutely agree. I think Chelsea.
But don't worry, Pete. It comes back down to earth next week.
I fully expect it, which is why I say I'm not getting too excited. But just to add really quickly on West Ham, just before you want to wrap, Dan. We keep saying this every season. They're spending money. You go back through. They've spent big money every summer in the last 3 or 4 years, and the same thing's happening. Now you look at West Ham's squad. West Ham squad is more than good enough to get European football of some form, whether it's Champions League, whether it's Europa, whether it's Conference, whatever. They should be doing better.
One game a week now as well.
Exactly. There's no excuse. No excuse. That 11, you look at that front line, it's brimmed full of quality. So you've got to then ask the question, why is the same thing still happening? Because I agree with Martin. Like I've watched West Ham. I watched them on Saturday against Fulham. I'm seeing no different to Moyes. Meant to have a brand new manager, a brand new philosophy, way of playing. Maybe I'm just being naive. Maybe I've not watched them close enough. West Ham fans might tell me different, but I'm not seeing anything different that makes me think, oh, okay, yeah, these are on something here. And that's no disrespect to West Ham. I'm just looking at the quality of players they've got. They've got some brilliant players, but it's just still same old. And there's more questions than answers for me at the moment.
There's no improvement with the amount of money they've spent. That's the issue. They've spent a lot of money and they look like they've stood still. I'd even say potentially gone a little bit backwards on the style.
I honestly believe I said this previously. I think by November, I honestly think he could be gone. Like, I think it looks that bad. Like, it just doesn't look good enough. I don't know who they're going to get. Maybe they go and give Graham Potter a knock or someone. I've no idea. But for me, they've got to try something because it's been really bad. Like, I look at the quality on the show and I'm like, Bowen, Kudus, Paqueta, Fulkrug, Somerville coming on now in midfield. They've got quality as well. At the back, they've strengthened with Tadibo and Kilman, Wan-Bissaka as well. I'm like, they should be doing better than this. This is poor. And, look, I think they'll lose to Chelsea, and I don't think that's down to Lopetegui. I just think that Chelsea will get the job done. But I do think that West Ham need to look at Lopetegui and reassess and go, right, we're in November now. Where are we? And if they're anywhere between 13th and 16th, I think they should just pull the plug and get rid of him because they should be in the top half by bare minimum, in my opinion. So let's see what happens, man. What are you going for, Dan, score-wise?
Probably, I'm going to have to go with my heart. I say 2-1 Chelsea, but honestly, I think it could be a tough one.
Fair play. Martin, what are you saying for this game?
3-0 Chelsea.
Wow. Quite convincing then. Pete?
Yeah, I think it's going to be 3-1 Chelsea.
Interesting. I'm going 2-1 Chelsea as well. Listen, it's going to be a mad weekend, of course. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm nervous for this one as well. Do you know what? I say I'm nervous. I've been nervous for what feels like 6 weeks now. Going into every single game, Brighton was a bogey team for us at home. Then we went on we had Villa away, we had Tottenham away, we've had Atlanta away. Now I've got the big one. I'm just like, I'm kind of exhausted already. But listen, that's what it's all about. Difficult start for Arsenal, that's for sure. If we can come unscathed from this one, wow, I think it's been a good start with a couple of injuries we've had, man. Let's see what happens. Big up to every single one of you for being here. Thank you all so much. I've got a super chat here from Emmanuel. It says, Dan, who will play in the Odegaard role against Manchester City? I think it's going to be Trossard, my bro. I really do. I can see Trossard playing with, I think, Rice and then either Partey or Jorginho. Some people are suggesting playing Rice, Partey and Jorginho. Wow. I mean, that is really coming for a draw if we do that. So let's see what happens. Big up to every single one of you. Make sure you go follow BDB Dan. Make sure you're following Martin on the Mancunian way. Make sure you tune in at 8 p.m. tonight where I'll be on talking all things Arsenal, Man City with Martin and the crew. And Pete on Loaded Mag NUFC as well. Big up to everyone. Make sure you smash a like and subscribe as you leave. And we'll see you next time. Take care, people.
Cheers, Dan.